Hi everyone, I'm Sarah from Sarah's Hand Embroidery. In this video, I will show you how I have stitched a brick wall with a window and climbing roses. This pattern is available to all my patrons. The link to become a patron is given in the description. The vital thing to note is that when transferring the pattern, you need not copy each brick. Instead, trace only the main lines as shown here. Begin by making all the outlines using 2 strands of brick-colored thread. The back stitch will be the most appropriate to use for the outlines here. Keep the stitches as consistent as possible, especially on straight lines. Now, there are some lines that are not really stitch lines, but I have drawn them as guidelines to help me when making the bricks. It's more like a peripheral line. Do not stitch on these, like the one on the left hand side below the line that I have stitched, and the jagged ones on the right hand side. I'm going to speed up the video now. This is a stitch along video, so I will keep the video going, speeding up now and then and pausing to change the direction of the embroidery hoop. If you want to skip to the next section, please use the scroll bar or the timestamps in the description. This will be a slightly longer video. This project might also take a bit longer for you to finish. I continue to stitch the windows and finish all the outlines that are meant to be done. After the outlines, I start working on the arches of the window. Continue with the same colored thread. Make vertical lines as shown in the pattern. If you want to make lines to guide you with the stitch, do it. I have marked few lines to help me with the angle of the stitches as it is a curved structure. Work the straight stitches on the narrow columns too. The pattern will make little sense right now, but wait until you start with the bricks. Before that, let us work the windows. Using 2 strands of a dark gray color, use the satin stitch to cover the 5 portions of the window. To avoid gaps being shown on the edges, try to encroach the stitch a bit under the back stitches used for the outlines. Another way to deal with this pattern is to work the windows first and then make the outlines. This will save you the hassle of encroaching under the earlier stitches. Use the needle to guide you by pressing it flat against the fabric very close to the earlier stitches to see which spot to take it down through the fabric. This will help in keeping the background totally gap-free. Once all the windows are covered, take a single strand of a lighter gray color or even white to couch down the long strands of the satin stitches using the trellis couching stitch. Start working diagonal stitches from one side of the window. It makes more sense to start from the right bottom side. Make the first stitch at the angle you desire. The other stitches will lay parallel to the stitch. So the very first stitch is the trendsetter. Make it properly. As you stitch, to ensure that the stitch will lay parallel to the previous stitch, just use the thread or even the needle to guide you. You can try to stitch one window at a time or multiple panels as I am showing here. Next, let us work the diagonal stitches in the other direction using the same method. But this time, I will work one window at a time. Once the diagonal stitches are finished, tack down the intersections using a tiny straight stitch. This is what holds these diagonal straight stitches. This is what holds the diagonal stitches down and in turn keeps the satin stitch on the background secured. I would have shown more of the tacking, but my camera had stopped recording and I had not realized. I'm so sorry about that. My windows are now all done. Now is the time to make the bricks. I did think about making the bricks in solid colors, but then making the outlines will be more sensible on a small pattern as this. I will use just one strand of the embroidery floss. Blanket stitch seems perfect to create a brick-like pattern. You will see that the width of the wall space I'm stitching on right now is narrow, so I have to adjust the location of the vertical stitches slightly to create that brick-like effect. Also, I'm using a variegated thread so that the shades of the bricks are made naturally as I stitch. I hope now it is starting to make sense. You have to go by the eye to space the stitches. If you find that challenging, draw horizontal stitch lines to guide you. In the place where I have more space, working the blanket stitch is much easier. On the column closer to the window, work the blanket stitch a bit tilted to create that illusion of the window being inside the wall. This is optional though. Now that we are done with all the bricks, let us work on the climbing roses. I see that in my pattern sheet, the dots are scattered around. Each dot is a flower. Take 6 strands of a color of your choice and scatter around using the French knots. Some closer to the walls, some encroaching into it. Now, when you want to make a bigger rose, try not to tighten the wraps around the needle while making the knots. Instead, leave it slightly loose. To make them slightly smaller, tighten the wraps. Make as many as you want. Next is to fill the leaves. I take 6 strands of green color and do the seeding stitch to cover the space around the roses. They will look like leaves. I have gaps to fill. You can choose to leave them, but I prefer to fill them a bit more. So using 2 strands of another shade of the green color, work the lazy daisy stitch that makes the leaves look a bit more rounded. The links to all the stitches used in this pattern is given in the description, so don't worry if you're not able to follow any of the stitches in this video. I now use 6 strands of another red color to create tiny clusters of French knots and make the climbing bush fuller. The pattern is done. It reminds me of something like the window of Rapunzel's tower. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Care to let me know by commenting and liking it. Thank you so much for watching.